Hi everyone, my name is Sneha. I'm a graduate assistant at the Human Resources Department, and today we will be discussing the fundamentals of goal setting, and we have with us Nicole.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole Wilson, and I am the Human Resources Partner here at RMU, and I manage and oversee the performance development process.
Great, so today we will be covering the basics of goal setting and including the difference between performance goals and development goals. Also, Nicole will be sharing with us some tips for getting adjusted to goals and talk about why goal setting is important. Right, Nicole, so let's start with it. Uh, Please explain to us why goal setting is important and what is the purpose of it.
Sure, Sneha, that is a great question. In many organizations and for many folks, goal setting is what people would consider a check the box, right? It's a have to instead of a want to. And at RMU, that is something that we really are aspiring to change and wanting to change. Goal setting is your roadmap, right? We need to know where we're going. And in terms of our performance and in our growth and in our development, we need to know where we are going and how we are going to get there. And the way that we do that is through goals. And it is important for employees, goal setting, because it serves as that mechanism that helps us to grow and develop, to keep track of our progress, to know how we're doing. It also is part of our performance development process now. So if you are setting goals and working on goals and having these conversations with your manager, this makes the end of the year performance development summary, form, and process so much easier, right? Because you have content to put in your summary form and you are having conversations with your manager. And for managers, goal setting is really important because it allows you as a manager to have a tool or to have a mechanism to be able to help your employees to grow. Another key piece to that is that we are creating alignment. You are creating alignment for your employees to that larger university goal, department goal. We are threading the needle, as I always explain, so that folks are all working towards that same shared vision. And you are cascading those goals down as a manager, giving that information, providing that information to your employees, and you are helping them grow and develop.
Right. So when employees are thinking about goals, are there a particular number of goals they should be setting?
There actually are. Is it possible that someone could have 20 goals over the course of a year that they work on and that they achieve? Maybe, right? But is that really realistic? Is that attainable for most folks? Probably not. It's not really something that we could do. So for me, a range that I recommend is between 4 and 6 goals for an individual, and as part of those 4 and 6 goals, some of those are maybe goals that a manager has cascaded down, right? Meaning it is something that's part of a larger department goal, down to the individual. Those 4 to 6 goals could be individual goals. And just as a caveat to that, goals can change throughout the course of the year. So your 4 to 6 that you have at the beginning of the year may not always be the 4 to 6 that you have at the end.
Right, and that keeps us on track. That helps employees not set expectations that they cannot achieve.
Correct.
So that makes sense. Where do you think is a good place to start goal setting, and how can somebody decide what goals are important?
Sure. So a good place to start, and where I recommend, is you need to know what are your responsibilities. What are you supposed to be doing in your role? And that all starts with the job description. Understanding that certain times of year are busier than others and priorities shift and change, but that job description serves as that good foundation, that starting point to figure this is what I am expected to do in my role, and then how do we grow and expand on that and stretch that to develop my goals.
Right. So we see how goal setting is integral to the new process, but are there different types of goals people should be setting?
There are, Sneha. That is a really good question. I think of goals as sort of in two buckets, right? The first are the performance goals, and those performance goals are the goals, and it's the work that you would be measured on over the review period. So this is all tied back to that position description. They're related to those behaviors and actions that you're going to do, that you will demonstrate. They add value to the university. It's very specific to your role and to your position. When I'm working with individuals and we're talking about goals, a question for performance goals that you can ask of yourself is, what is expected of me this year, and what skills do I need to get there? And that helps you think about those performance goals. But I mentioned that there were two, right? So the other one would be development goals. And those development goals are really related to more of the intrinsic things, the values, the strengths, your interests, tied to future career-related maybe opportunities, tied to your individual development, and represent growth over time. And so those development goals can be achieved through internal or external examples.
Right, and it becomes important, and most of the times we discuss about performance goals related to the team, your manager, your organization, but we forget or not think so much about development goals. So that's a very good point that you brought up there. How about responsibilities? What do you think is the employee's responsibility, and what's the manager's responsibility?
Sure, that's a really good question, and to be honest, it has come up, and folks are wondering, what is my role or responsibility in this process? So I'll start with the employee first, and I think the employee's responsibility in this is to really sort of drive the discussions. And so having these goal setting discussions, driving the desire to want to set the goals, feeling empowered to do so, right? So to take some of that ownership that your development individually, your performance development is yours, right? And you can own that, and you can drive that. And being able to track your goals, know where you are, and being prepared to share that information with your manager so you can ask for the support, help, and resources that you need. But for a manager, what are your responsibilities if you're a manager in this process? So it really is to provide guidance at the goal setting point and making sure that those goals that employees are working on are connected, are threaded, right? Thread the needle again to the larger university goals, to the RMU 100 where we can, to your department goals, that you're cascading when you can, so that the work that folks are doing is really staying connected and related and pertinent to the work of your department or your unit. That you're really focusing on trying to have those ongoing conversations on a regular basis, and that would be whatever works for you, but checking in. So you help them set the goals, and then you work with them and check in with them and provide feedback on what they're doing and guiding them if there are roadblocks. This really does help with productivity and engagement, and as a manager, that is your role or function.
Yes, that sounds like it makes sense, because at times people can be overwhelmed by having to set their goals, and your manager is a very good point of contact as a support system.
Yes.
So that makes a lot of sense. How about some tips? Some final tips you think that are needed for us to remember every time we're trying to set our goals?
Sure. And so I always like to come up with some tips and best practices to end things and something that folks can remember. And I'm a counter, so I'll count them on my hand for us all. But all of the tips and resources can be found on our performance management page, which is rmu.edu/performance management. So I've got 4 takeaways here, and as we talk about goal setting and we're in the middle of our performance cycle, or we're at the end of our performance cycle, or at the start, what are some 4 things that we can remember? The first is to state the goal as a positive, and I like to think of this as related to a personal example. If you need to cut back on caffeine, you're going to focus on drinking more water versus not to drink coffee anymore, because you're focusing on the positive. And so we want to make sure that we're focusing on the positives when we're setting our goals, and the positive results of those goals. So that's something that's important that we want to do, is state the goal as a positive. The second is to be able to prioritize our goals and set those priorities. And that really comes with helping with help from our managers, right? To be able to say, here are our 6 goals, here's what should be first, and maybe 3 months from now when you accomplish that goal, it moves off your list. Maybe in 3 months it moves down. But we should be able to prioritize our goals so we know where to put the effort into our work, and it really helps us with our work day. The third is adjusting our goals. So if we need to set priorities for our goals, we also need to be able to adjust them and build that into our process. So maybe a goal isn't relatable anymore. Maybe it's no longer a priority. The only way that we'll know that is if we build that into our process and we're having those regular check-ins and discussions. And the third is to review, the fourth is to review our completed goals. I talk about lessons learned all the time and learning from what we've achieved, and goals are no different. So once you achieve your goal, actually sitting down and thinking about what worked well, what didn't, what did I learn from here? Is there potential for another goal? It's a really great habit and best practice to be in. So the 4, set your goal as a positive, set your priorities, adjust your goals, and review your goals. So those would be my tips.
Great. That sounds very positive tips and very crisp for you to go ahead and start it. I hope you guys liked our video and you get to learn a lot about goal setting through this. I thank Nicole for her time, and thank you for watching this video and learning from us.
Thank you, everyone.